The Tom Brady era in Las Vegas has begun, and we should be excited for it. Not only are the Raiders looking to bring in some of the top candidates for the head coaching position, but the Raiders are also doing their due diligence in finding the right GM. And today, the Raiders have already lined up 2 interviews for the position, one being a heavily favorite for the GM job, Buccaneers assistant GM John Spytek. According to Adam Schefter, he announced today early this morning saying that Bucs assistant GM John Spytek is scheduled to interview for a second this week for the Raiders general manager job, per source. Now, looking at John Spytek, he has spent the last 9 years in Tampa Bay, the last 2 years as assistant GM. Before that, he had stints with the Browns, Lions, Eagles, and Broncos. Now, I talked about this in a previous video. John Spytek was one of the main reasons why they were able to land Tom Brady. Not only him, also signing big names like JPP, Ndamukong Suh, Shaquille Barrett, and even Rob Gronkowski, building that team up together, building that core to eventually go on to win Super Bowl 55. But the Tom Brady and John Spytek relationship doesn't end there, because going back in the day, he actually played with Tom Brady at Michigan and built that relationship with him with the Buccaneers. And then he also proceeded to build that relationship with Tom Brady over there in Tampa Bay. Now, on top of that, after the Brady era was over in Tampa Bay, he also brought in quarterback Baker Mayfield to help lead that team post Brady era. And looking at the Buccaneers right now, it still feels like they haven't lost much of a step. Now, they're not really Super Bowl contenders, but they've still been able to manage to get into the playoffs. And a little fun fact though, John Spytek actually interviewed for the Raiders GM position back in 2022 before we eventually hired Dave Ziegler and, Josh McDaniels. But fast forward to today, it's great to hear that the Raiders are still interested in him, because there's a lot to really be excited about John Spytek. He's a guy that can evaluate talent. He's a guy that could bring in free agents. And with that relationship that he already has with Tom Brady, I feel like they're just going to be connected like that. And I know that this interview is definitely going to be great. It's just a matter of if he's going to want to come over here to the silver and black or not. I know Tom Brady is pulling his strings right now. He's been making a lot of moves. I mean, he's been the main reason why we've been able to get a lot of these top candidates to even interview with the team. We've talked about it yesterday. Ben Johnson being the #1 name that a lot of people want, and he's a candidate that not only the Raiders want, but everybody else wants. I know he's a first-time head coach and doesn't really have experience as a head coach, but as an offensive coordinator and a guy that can bring the best out of players, Ben Johnson is that guy. And a lot of people are reporting, shout out to my boy Hondo Carpenter, they're reporting that John Spytek and Ben Johnson seems to be the dream scenario over here in Las Vegas. Those are the 2 guys that the Raiders are keeping their eye on. Now, we already know how Ben Johnson's interview with the Raiders went. It went flawless. They loved it. And I feel like the Raiders are the best case scenario for any of these guys to come over here. We got the cap space. We got a top pick in the draft. We got a team that you can build around, where you got that relationship with Tom Brady. And then being in the city of Las Vegas, being a part of a storied franchise that you can turn around, it's a lot. I know the Bears are another option that these other guys might have, but hey, I'm being a little bit biased, but I feel like the Raiders job is really intriguing for anybody that's interested in coming over here. But one name that I do kind of want to talk about a little bit is Commanders assistant GM Lance Newmark. I talked about it before in the Ben Johnson video. A lot of people are not talking about it yet, but he could be a guy that can be an honorable mention if the Raiders do not end up getting John Spytek, because I also feel like John Spytek is going to get a lot of offers from other teams. And I know that Ben Johnson, during his interview process, wants to find his own GM. He wants to get his own guy. So I know that Spytek isn't initially Ben Johnson's guy, but they both have good relationships with Tom Brady. So with that said, the reason why I bring in Lance Newmark is because he does have that relationship already with Ben Johnson. So if Ben Johnson wants to get his guy, I believe Lance Newmark could also be another option for the Raiders. Newmark has done a great job for all the teams that he's been with. He's been with the Lions. He's been with the Commanders for 1 season, helped turn that franchise around in just 1 season. And I believe he could do the same thing over here. The only thing is, we'd be going into this, whether we get Newmark, whether we get Spytek or Johnson, these are all going to be first-time head coaches and GMs. And, I just kind of wish that there would be some experience there. But, hey, I'm not really going to complain. Whoever Tom Brady wants to bring in, you know what? I'm gonna go with it. It's the Tom Brady show at the end of the day, and I'm just gonna trust the process. But the Raiders didn't stop there. The Raiders also requested yet another interview with Packers VP of Player Personnel, John Eric Sullivan. Now, according to Ian Rappaport, that was the first news that broke this morning. He stated that the Raiders have begun submitting slips for their vacant GM job, and Packers VP of Player Personnel, John Eric Sullivan, has received a request to interview, sources said. Now, John Sullivan joined the Packers full-time in 2004. He moved his way up the ranks since then to his position right now. He's one guy that's an exceptional evaluator of talent, can scout talent in the NFL draft. He was one guy that was involved with scouting and bringing Jordan Love over to Green Bay. And he could also be a guy that could possibly wow, Tom Brady and Mark Davis in his interview. Now, he already has interview with the Titans, and I think he does have an interview with the Jets. So, it's going to be a lot of moving pieces going around. John Sullivan seems like he's a guy that, can bring in talent. And if there's anything the Raiders have struggled with for the past couple of years, decades, I can say, is we have struggled evaluating talent, especially in the first round, second round. I think after the second round is where the Raiders always get their bread and butter. You look at the drafts that we've had in past years, we haven't really hit in the first rounds, but those later rounds have definitely been where we've been able to get most of our talent at. So if it's John Sullivan, if it's John Spytek, if it's Ben Johnson, any one of these guys, I just hope that they could change the dynamic over here, especially in the draft room, and even bringing in free agents. This is only the start, and things are going to start riling up in these next coming days and weeks, especially seeing where these NFL teams in the playoffs land. Commanders are still playing right now. The Lions are still playing right now. And I know that the Raiders really want to find their head coach right now. If they could, they would hire him right now. But the fact that Ben Johnson seems to be the #1 guy on their list, I think the Raiders are just going to be patient right now. And I don't know how Pete Carroll's interview did yesterday. I know we talked about it a little bit, but he's the guy that I can realistically see the Raiders actually hiring. We always put a name to what we want. Raider fans, we want this quarterback. This is the quarterback we're going to get. We never get him. This is the head coach we want to get. We never get him. So I feel like Ben Johnson right now, there's definitely a possibility. But don't be surprised if the Raiders aren't able to get him. So that's why I said yesterday, Pete Carroll could be the Raiders' best option with the experience that he brings, with the connections that he has in the NFL. Just all of that put into one. I really do love Pete Carroll. But if we do end up with Johnson, I'm fine with that. The big question is going to be, who is he going to be paired up with, and will they be a good dance partner with him? I just love the fact that the Raiders are actually doing their homework. They're doing their due diligence and going out and interviewing as many people as they can. Whether or not they end up hiring them or not, you kind of get a feel for everybody around the league, and you try to hire the best person for the job, instead of everybody last year, wanting AP and just sticking with that, overlooking other talented prospects out there, talented, coaches out there. I just know now that everything's going to be different, and Mark Davis is going to be moving different. And now with Tom Brady at the helm, being the Tom Brady show, we can only just sit back and just enjoy the ride. I don't think that the Raider fans are going to be mad with whoever it is, as long as whoever comes in can come in and build a winning culture and help, bring in the right pieces, the right talent for this team, and just start winning. Man, at the end of the day, no matter how we feel, no matter if we get the guy that we want or not, if the Raiders end up winning moving forward, none of this ain't gonna matter at the end of the day. So with all that being said, though, Raider Nation, man, how do you guys feel about today's news? What do you think about John Spytek? What do you think about John Eric Sullivan? Who would be your guy to pair up with either a Ben Johnson or a Pete Carroll? If you had to put together your dream hire, head coach and GM, who would they be? Let me know down in the comments below. With that said, like always, if this is the very first time you come across my video and you love the Las Vegas Raiders, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon button just to notify you guys when I upload more videos just like this. Until the next one, this is your boy, Some More Raider, and your boys, yeah.